When a parent is saying study and don't play, what do they really want? The risks perceived in sports as a career are way higher than academics as a career. There's Zakir Khan, one of this famous stand-up comedian in one of these shows, made an interesting point when people asked him about why don't parents support comedians as a career. Parents को आपके passion से problem नहीं है. Parents आपको गरीब नहीं देखना चाहते.
What would you say to a student who has a really deep inner passion for sports, but their parents are forcing them to study?
How can you continue to nurture both? I'm thinking for the amount of stress, academic stress that 11th, 12th and college that it has, you should probably balance it out by playing in physical movement and all that.
You top the exams and still play, nobody is going to say no to you. The problem is you play and then you flunk exams.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Try Your Tales podcast. I'm Hamsini and this is Rishan. It is our pleasure to welcome you Mr. Soumil Majumdar and Dr. Vijay Krishnamurthy to talk about the importance of sports in children's lives.
Well, welcome Mr. Soumil and Dr. Vijay. Could you introduce yourselves?
Yeah, my name is Vijay. I'm a sports researcher and an executive coach. I have an engineering background. I've been fortunate to have been through the engineering route for a while, but then switched over to, my passion subject is sport and getting kids to play. So thanks for having us here.
Hi, my name is Soumil Majumdar. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Sports Village. We have the Ready Sports program that works in schools. By training, I'm an engineer and MBA. Been passionate sports player all my life, still play. And over the last 23 odd years, trying to find ways to get more kids to play.
Well,
Thank you for having us.
Well, I think that was very impressive. So, Rishan and I read up on some of your work, and I think we have some questions to ask you. So, Rishan, let's start it.
Okay, so let's get started. So, Dr. Vijay, your journey spans from engineering to leadership to coaching and research, and you worked at these huge tech companies like Broadcom, Synopsys, and Philips. But what made you switch from this corporate job to writing a book about sports?
Okay, so I'm from Bangalore. To start with, I'm Bangalorean, so obviously I had to do engineering. So I did my engineering, and way back in time when I was your age, even computers and stuff, it was an exciting time of computerization happening. I was passionate about electronics and microprocessor design, so I became an engineer. I did my post-graduation. I lived and worked in the US for 10 years. I did whatever I could in engineering field, but then I realized that after a certain point, that is between, let's say, 97 to 2014, so I had, there's a point, all the companies that you mentioned, I felt after I had become a parent, I felt like things had changed in my head. Now you're looking at the world through the lens of, of my child. And at that time, I felt like, are we having too much technology and things happening? And, at the starting point of, a childhood, they need to play more and stuff. And I'd always been involved in sport as a kid. I've played enough sport. So that, I think, was a tipping point in terms of transforming more towards from engineering to sport. But having said this, I do work with all those companies now on a different, avatar. As an executive coach, I coach them. But I think health, well-being, sport and all that is definitely a core focus, right?
Thank you. And what brought you two together to write a book on this topic?
You want to go? I know Soumil from time, even to your point, even when I was a techie, I knew Soumil. And I used to talk to him about, are we having too much tech? And Soumil is one of those brave guys who jumped into sport. I was still doing it as as my secondary line of interest. My primary, I was still in tech companies. And so I reached out to him. 2008 it was. Yeah, 2008, long time ago. But as I kept, observing Soumil's work, and it was growing across India and stuff like that. So I think one of the things I should say is I got in deeper. I was reviewing Karnataka sports policy as part of my PhD. I think at that time, COVID, we were all trapped indoors. I really, it felt like something had to be done, right, for the kids. So I'd reached out and then we wrote the book.
Yeah, he just called me and said you should write a book. I said, look, I have enough chaos going on with COVID. He said he'll do most of the heavy lifting, and here we are.
Okay, so looking back at all of this, how was your experience working together?
It's fun. It's the same as kids playing and having fun. Of course, writing is a different kind of thing, but look, it's the same thing. I think you guys know it. I mean, if you're playing sport, if you're passionate about, so PhD taught me a lot of research-oriented thinking and writing, and it's the same thing. It's about certain things work, you enjoy the process. Actually, we didn't even know that we were on to something which became a book, and people started to, we thought get kids to play, by the way, to tell you, we thought was such a basic thing. Why are we even talking about getting kids to play? They would anyway be playing even if you didn't write the book, right? But maybe COVID plus the way overuse of technology, all that is now reminding us that kids should play book.
Okay, so to viewers who are interested in reading your book, could you describe it pretty briefly for them?
Okay, let me take a shot. So I think what we found, maybe just a minute more on the why the book, and then or how the viewers can use it. I think we found in my journey over the last 23 years that a lot of people would meet and say, okay, you're getting kids to play, fantastic. And I also want to get kids to play, but they would, so there's a lot of goodwill around getting kids to play. People want to do it, adults around us want to do it, but they get stuck somewhere. And those, we found there were 5 parameters that broadly need to come together for a positive sporting experience. One was space. So very often people get stuck saying, where do kids play? Do I have access to space? Is it safe? And so on, right? There was time. When do kids play? Homework, travel, commute. How do I find time? Third was content, as in what do they play? Do they play for fun? Do they play to win a medal? Do they play for something else, right? Fourth was facilitator. Who facilitates it? Is it self-driven? Is it done by a coach or a PE teacher? Is it done by a parent? It changes the experience. And lastly, but most importantly, the child itself, by the child's interest, child's background, existing levels, aspirations. These 5 things, when they come together well, magic happens. If one of them doesn't come together, it is chaos. It's like a symphony versus cacophony, right? And the attempt of the book, think of the book as a Swiss knife. That the Swiss knife has 5 different things, and you will pull out the tool based on the problem you're going to solve. If as you're trying to get kids to play, you have a space problem, open the book chapter on space, and hopefully you'll find solutions for your context. Or you think the problem is around how should we facilitate the whole program, open that chapter, and it's like a toolkit for you to solve the problem.
Thank you. Well, the cover of your book says that it was foreword by Rahul Dravid, right? So how does it feel having the introduction of your book written by such a prestigious and like this cricketer?
Feels great. Obviously, we're fortunate that he was the first person we reached out to, interestingly. And he quickly, I think he also realized maybe he's also living in the same era, and he probably knew that kids are not playing enough. So he quickly helped us out, and it was, we're really fortunate for it to.
Yeah, he was extremely gracious. Very quickly, he just said he understood what the book was about and very graciously agreed to write the foreword.
Okay, so what do you think are some of the main challenges you face today while getting kids to play outside, especially in this world where kids are addicted to video games?
Well, it's a good question. I think the let's break down the symptom from the problem, right? I think the real problem is this experience of fun. And video games are addictive because they give you fun. They also solve a lot of problems most kids have when they want to experience physical play. Space. Where do I go and play? There's a car parked downstairs, there's a road outside my house, or the time. I want to play now, you don't want to play now. How do we synchronize? What do we play? I want to play this game, you want to play that game. Right? How do you facilitate? So each of those pieces, kids are having trouble putting it all together, and video games, and therefore fun goes lower. Video games are addictive because they're solving all of those problems. So if you think about fun as a fundamental problem to solve, and each of these are ways to help kids have fun, then the play happens. And that's the whole point of the toolkit.
So, question, Mr. Soumil. Hypothetically, if every child in India had the freedom to play, what kind of society would we be looking at 20 years from now?
Wonderful society, a happy society, kids laughing a lot more fun. On a more serious note, healthy, right? Better emotional health, better mental health, better physical health, less communicable, non-communicable diseases, all the stuff that you're hearing in your parents' generation right now, our diabetes, heart, and so on and so forth. Fundamentally, the solutions are very simple, right? The sleep, eat, and physical activity. And play and sport helps you do physical activity with the larger emotional and social connection that happens, which doesn't happen in a, let's say, solo activity of a gym. That community feeling, that feeling of bonding, and all that comes together. I think it'll be a much better world, and that's what we are trying to do.
Okay. So what qualities do children get from playing outside that you can't get in a typical classroom?
There's so many. Fun is one thing, like he's saying. I think, but for me specifically, I think sport teaches you to play and also learn to lose. Classrooms, and you're always trying to be perfect, get better at everything. Here, you just it could go either way. The match could just, you could be leading, you don't get this, and which is very close to how life is. If you look at sport, right? Is there any other place where who would willingly go into an experience where you know if you're going to lose? Majority of the I don't think adults, kids would choose it, but sport is something that's giving so much of that fun experience that you're happy to, doesn't matter what the result is. I think that's the biggest one, and the connected thing as an adult, at least for me, sport has stayed right through. So it obviously it falls into your all other zones of life, right? When you wrote a book, you looked at it as, I don't know how the book is going to do well or not, but you're putting in the effort into it, and you're okay to see what's going to happen. That to me is actually coming again from sport.
I think the framing is important. The framing sports as separate from education is a problem. When we think of sports as a part of education, then it works well. As much as there is academics and everything else that's important, the sports piece is a part of education. And that's how it's been structured. If you look at NEP, look at all the academic frameworks, physical education in sports is mandatory in your timetable. You can't start a school if you don't have a physical education expert on your team. So in the policy, it's been mandated. The question is in the implementation, how can we make sure that each child gets the experience it deserves?
So you're pretty qualified in both education and sports, I would say. So how did you balance both?
So that's an interesting question. But let me give you a small anecdote. First of all, I think it's an important point to remind ourselves that it is possible, first of all. Very often the narrative is that if you're good in sports, you must be bad in academics. Or if you're good in academics, you must be bad in sports. It is possible to balance both. The problem happens when people want to do these two and then party a lot and hang out and you want to do 25 things, obviously you're not going to do well in one of those, right? I think by letting this narrative continue that if you're good in sports, you'll be bad in academics, I think we're doing disservice to the students. And as parents or as school leaders, we are not holding them accountable to a higher standard. That, yeah, by all means participate in tournament, but why can't you not also do well in exams? They are not mutually exclusive. I was fortunate to be in an environment while growing up which valued both. But I'm also tell you a very humbling moment. I was selected for badminton for at a certain level. I thought I was a school dude. Then after 9th, 10th standard, I said, that's not for me, and I got into academics. I cleared the JEE exam, got to IIT Bombay, and I thought I was a school dude walking into IIT Bombay who's played sport at a decent level and also cracked JEE, and I could not get into the IIT Bombay badminton team. There were 8 other players who were better than me in badminton, And the worst part is that JE ranks were better than mine. So it reminded me that balancing at the highest level is possible. We had I remember in second year or third year, we had a player from Mauritius who was part of the Mauritius Olympic team. He came and thrashed all of us.
Yeah.
So it is possible. I think holding kids who are in sports to a higher standard on the academic side is an important construct we have to accept. We are giving them a free pass by saying, if you're sports, academics. No. We have to hold the line.
Also, how long will you study is the question, right? You have to stop somewhere and you have to, right? How much? Yeah, you have to.
Everyone needs one.
And to his point, I want to add that you need more role models of ones who can do multiple things. Otherwise, you don't want one dimension.
Yeah. And Dr. Vijay, as you mentioned, like sports and education should be hand in hand, right? What would you say to a student who has a really deep inner passion for sports, but their parents are forcing them to study?
Yeah, so related to the previous, I wouldn't make it a either or. How can you continue to nurture both, right? And it also, to your point, it also depends on the age group. If let's say primary, middle school, there's really nothing to worry about. You've got to keep going on, right? Maybe if you come to, let's say you're getting into 11th, 12th, and there's a college angle and you have to select. Even then, I would say, I think very counterintuitive now. I'm thinking for the amount of stress, academic stress that 11th, 12th and college that it has, you should probably balance it out by playing and physical movement and all that. So I doubt if it's ever going to come in the way and stop something else from happening. Even if you think of 60 to 90 minutes of playing a sport every day. I have had friends who used to play every day and all of them have done exceedingly well in academics and in life. So I do, yeah.
But I realize the use case, and the important thing is to remind the listeners, especially their students, as to you need to negotiate with the adult world. When a parent is saying study and don't play, what do they really want? Why are they saying it? They are wanting your self-interest. They are wanting your interest. It's not that you are the one who's going to get a career. You are the one who's going to get a degree. So why are they saying play less, study more? Because the risks perceived in sports as a career are way higher than academics as a career. There's Zakir Khan, one of this famous stand-up comedian in one of these shows, made an interesting point when people asked him about why don't parents support comedians as a career, for example, right? Sports, any alternate career. He made an interesting point in Hindi, and I'll translate for whoever needs it. That he said, parents को आपके passion से problem नहीं है. Parents आपको गरीब नहीं देखना चाहते हैं. Parents don't have a problem with your passion. They don't want you to grow up and be poor. And so they're trying to give you a foundation that will help you earn a comfortable living and do well in society. So as a child, if you're wanting to negotiate with your parents about academics and sports, address that question, that say, I will play, but I will make sure I'll do well in academics. Very often this other part of the contract, the kids are not thumping the table and say, I will do well. They're saying, I want to go and play, but they're not saying, yes, I will play, but I will do well in academics.
Yeah.
You also have to give something to get that in return, right?
The negotiation is the key to it.
Yeah, negotiate sounds very,
high
but
level.
let me simplify it. Your parents want something for you. Understand what they want. Address that concern. And if they want you to do well in academics while play, they don't have a problem with you playing. You top the exams and still play, nobody is going to say no to you. The problem is you play and then you flunk exams. Right? Then they have no other option but to tell you.
But remember, every single idol we follow in India, whether it's a Sachin, whether it's all people, whether it's sport, music, all other, right? They all, we all look up to them. They also went through their childhood and they did not know that guaranteed success is going to happen. Pick one thing whichever path you pick, you have to continue to work hard. You have to continue to stay passionate. You have to continue to do it. And you don't know whether it's going to happen. So I think that's the games. Right?
So Gokishan had an interesting framework which might be useful in sports, and it's true for any other non-sports position as well. That till like 12, 13, play multiple sports, play seriously, and so on and so forth. 13, 14, have a professional assessment done of where are you right now. Do you have a chance to really make it big or not? You have a chance, then make a considered view of how you're going to balance education. Are you going to give up education with your parent? Do you have the funding for it, and so on and so forth. If you're not, then play for life. This is what I did.
Yeah.
But that question has to come at the right time, not when you're 7 or 8. Play till 13, 14, see if you're good enough, and then make that choice.
So, speaking of kids, I have read that you worked with 500,000 children in India. So, what have these kids taught you that changed your life?
Lots. But I think the single most piece is how they have an ability to play and stay engaged and have fun. Whatever the context. Kids don't have problem playing here. Adults in this room will have problem about stuff breaking, but kids will play. Right? Time. Play with, roll up a ball and play. I played hand cricket with kid. Right? These all play. So the ability to play anytime, anywhere and convert any moment into this fun, engaging experience, I think is the biggest lesson I've learned.
And while working with these 500,000 children, I'm sure you guys must have exchanged stories. You must have told some shared stories to them. They must have shared stories to you. But which child's story has stayed with you for years because it reminded you that this mission of making sure everyone gets to play a sport matters?
It's a good question. Many years ago, we had this parent. We were running this after school program, and we had this parent showing up, the child who had a physical disability. Right? I didn't know more about it, but I could see that there was a challenge in terms of physical abilities. And the parents said, "Look, can they play?" And we said, "Yeah, sure." And we made sure that the other kids, included them, and the usual stuff that you would want to do to make sure people feel comfortable and so on. After a few months, yeah, so the parents came back and said that they were almost in tears, saying they have seen an improvement in the child's physical ability apart from the social and emotional stuff, which has not happened from any treatment that they've gone through. They came and said thank you to me. I said, "What? I didn't do anything. You know, I just got the child to play. I actually did not do anything beyond that." So there's a power in the medium of play, which is, I think, sometimes scarily powerful, that we are not using.
Yeah.
And these kind of one-off anecdotes just makes you feel like all the other pain is worth it because more people will experience the magic of play.
Okay, so Dr. Vijay, out of all of your accomplishments, which one do you think you're most proud of?
Wow, I've never been asked this. So I'm not retiring any soon, so I may select others. But I look at whether it's my career professional achievement as something like interconnected or interdisciplinary, right? I needed maybe analytical skills and research also in research thing, in writing or writing back to. So I think it's sort of, I'm not able to separate out the branches. But if I have to reduce it to just two things, at a point when I quit corporate, I was like deep into electronic design and towards consumer electronics. I was in charge of the set-top box, and somewhere at some point of time, it was to make it simpler for you guys, it was going towards getting people to watch TV or getting kids to watch TV angle, right? And I remember being part of a meeting. As much as I'm thankful to the corporate, there was one meeting I attended which said that you've heard of this Disney, Nickelodeon, Pogo channels and all introduced in India, and at some point the rankings or TRP ratings were falling off. And I was in a meeting saying, how can we do whatever it takes to get kids to get glued to the TV? That really bothered me actually. Right? And I'm thinking, what am I using my brain for now, right? So those moments are there in my head. So if I compare that to arriving at getting kids to play, I'm sure this is more fulfilling and satisfying. And I did not realize that kids are playing so less now, which is a bigger problem. But at least I feel like I did my part to be not part of that journey, right? Getting them to do other things. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
No, you did. You did.
Mr. Soumil, so I read about Sports Village and how you started Sports Village, but what intrigued me is what makes Sports Village more of a movement rather than just any other organization for sports?
So I think there are lots of flashes of brilliance or islands of excellence around getting kids to play. When I say islands of excellence, they're doing very good work, but they don't scale. It only stays in that one, the one particular person or location and so on. I think our, if you call it movement or bragging right, if you will, would be that we figured out a model to sustainably scale how to get kids to play, which is by making sports a part of education through the EduSports program and working with schools. And in the school PE period, how do you bring the same structure, rigor, assessment, monitoring, parent involvement, child level tracking as you do it for maths or science? So at one level, we copied academics. What academics was doing anyway, we copied it. But doing it at scale and solving the problem with a model that can actually solve problems globally. School is a school. I've been to schools in the US, UK, Singapore, Australia, Hong Kong, and so on. It's the same problem. And the solutions therefore can scale. So this creating a scalable model to a sustainably scale model to get kids to play, I think is probably the.
So, how do you get schools to implement the EduSports program?
So our conversation typically with school leaders is around: do you accept that, or do you believe that sports a part of education? In the last 20 years, nobody has said no to that, because it is as part of education. The next question then is, okay, if it is part of education, then are you running it the way you run academics and education? Do you have a structured curriculum? Do you have a daily lesson plan? Do you have a trained teacher? Do you track each lesson plan? Do you track each child? Do you have normal curves that show that this is how the kids were last year and now this year the kids are more to the right? How do you handle this side of kids? How do you handle this side of kids? How do you engage all stakeholders? How do you show value? This is what happens for maths or science. And typically that structure, rigor, inclusion, while making sure fun happens, is not present in most schools for all kids. Most schools, the focus of sports programs is on the school team. If you're not part of a school team, which typically 95% chance that you're not, just statistically, right? 1,000 kids, 50 kids in a school team and 950 are not. That's the reality. So what do they get? That, if it's part of education, they should get more, right? And education has this fundamental construct that, let's say it's a maths class. You guys are doing well, he and I are struggling. The teacher should be spending time with us. Yes. But in sports, the flip happens. In sports, they will spend time with you and will tell us sports is not for you. But as part of education, you should spend time with us and reduce the gap between the top and the bottom, whereas right now it's increasing the gap. And therefore, girls are dropping out of sport, most kids are dropping out of sport. The real problem is, how do you think about teaching versus coaching? Most sports programs in schools have a coaching mindset. Find talent, get a school medal win, have a trophy. That's a coaching mindset, which is important to win competitors. But teaching requires that the kids who are not interested, how do I get them to fall in love with my subject? Think of that teacher that really you fell in love with the subject. Something happened, the subject was the same. Something the teacher did made you feel like, you know what, I like this topic. That is what we are trying to bring. And that I think is missing in most schools. And it's possible to have fun and inclusion and learning at scale.
And Mr. Soumil, so you had mentioned that you were also on the badminton team, right? And I also read that you are a black belt in karate and you have a mountaineering degree and you've also played football. So yeah, this is a lot of sports. Not many can do this. This is a lot. What would you say is your favorite or the one you enjoyed the most?
Good question. Football, I think, just playing football and then treks nowadays.
The treks.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thanks.
And then I would also want to ask you, Dr. Vijay, from your research, which barrier do you think keeps children from playing the most?
Yeah, which is very similar to what what's in the books. It's again space, time. Do we have a curriculum? Who's facilitating? But I would, as I see today, none of them are really a problem. We are creating barriers. For example, if I'm walking through the school gate and coming in here, it's not a full-size football field, but a 5x5, or you can play football. So it's been optimized and we can do it. That means space is actually not a problem because right next to the parking lot and they can play. Similarly, if we can just find solutions like that, it is very doable, whatever the size of it. The problem is sometimes if you think that you need full size or you need like a 90-minute game only possible and all that, if you put too many of these international rules or like what adults are playing and all that on kids playing, it usually doesn't happen. It feels like barriers. So I would really think that as much as we think they are barriers, it's more of a mindset to get starting to play. And like you were saying, you can play in this room. You can play. I mean, there's nothing, and there are indoor sports, external. Like, in India, when sometimes to your point, we have the widest range, according to me, from carom to table tennis to snooker. Like you have, and you could easily play as many sports and stuff as possible. So I would say it's more of a barrier in the mind. Then that is one. And the last point here is actually, if you ask kids, usually the barriers get removed quickly. If I ask you, right, saying it's too hot, what do you want to play? I'm sure you'll come up with an answer to play faster than, right? And we don't have to wait for the sun we don't have to wait for 5 p.m. to start playing, right? So.
And I also read and heard that you worked as an executive coach for tech giants and all. What would you say to a student to help them inculcate some leadership qualities?
Wow. Look, I played so much sport in my life that it's interesting that both my areas of professional areas have merged, like sport as a kid to sports research to coaching. So one of the things that constantly comes up is fear of failure, which I think is true for as a kid or exile. And I'm seeing the same thing happen to even CEOs and all of them, and sometimes really worried. How could you get to this point and be so good, and what are you worried about? So there's something about, there is from a research standpoint, I want to tell you that they have found that the ones who played sport up to university level, up to college, even amateur sport, were actually better at dealing with failures and all that, no matter what projects they got into, no matter which companies they worked. Because somewhere in their mind, they were not so worried about the result, in the sense that they at least got going to figure out, and they figured it out, right? The ones who unfortunately did not play enough sport, and this could be a data point for all people to encourage kids to play, right? Because that initial grounding is going to help you lifelong. So fear of failure is something which I'm surprised by. When I'd never expected it to last that long. I thought maybe it'll end at exam or getting a job. But imagine 30 years later, somebody is like actually scared to take up a project thinking it'll fail. Now that's right. So somewhere it's too late it's never too late to start playing a sport, but I think it's the mindset of trying to.
And I have a question for both of you. So, children are encouraged to play sports and they're told that they should be playing sports, but hardly any children actually do play sports. What does this say about the world that adults have created for children?
You're right. I messed up the word. The fact that a company like mine exists is a sad commentary on the nature of society today. Getting kids to play. Why should we write a book? Why should there be a business that gets kids to play? It should be happening, right? You're right, absolutely. It is the adults have failed. Urban planning has failed. They're all done by adults only. Why isn't there a playground near my house, near your house? Why can't you just walk to the playground instead of having to be driven? Why is it not safe for you to walk across? Why are parents telling you to go with a chaperone? Those are all adult society created problems. You're absolutely right. The question is now what? Once after you move beyond that and you identified who's the problem, now what? One answer is a toolkit that you created, saying, look, if you want to solve it, whoever wants to solve it, here's a toolkit. Second, I think equally importantly, kids have to step up. Kids have to negotiate with the adult world. Kids have to say, here's what I'm going to do, here's what I need you to do. Kids cannot only be in this victim mode that, it's not happening for us. At the end of it, you are losing out. 20 years later, like Vijay said, one of you is going to be having a fear of failure because you didn't play today. The problem with sport is that the benefits are too far in the future. Like an exam, I can teach you on maths and you can crack in maths tomorrow morning. right? And the benefit is very obvious. But that long-term thinking and commitment to that has to come from both sides. There are enough adults who want to solve it, but enough kids also need to step up to solve it.
It's a great question, Gandhi.
Thank you. And you also had worked in the, you're also in the National Sports Education Committee. Yeah. How would you implement sports
programs,
sport for everyone in the future?
Yeah, so I think figuring out a way to ensure the issue is not policy. Today, policy exists. Physical education is part of your timetable. You just can't get it out. Issue is the implementation. And one tool we feel that could be useful is to have assessment of children on improvement of fitness and on participation. As much as you get assessed on maths and science, and therefore you are tracked as to where are you and do you need corrective action, are you doing very well, and so on. So having more data around the experience that kids have, and think about education. There's a quantity problem, there's a quality problem. In this, we have to first solve the quantity problem, get all kids to play first. Then you solve the quality problem. Think, how do I now improve the way they are playing? Quantity requires, that's what happened in education. We got all our kids in school. Now we tend to solve, okay, now they're in school, how do you make sure that they're taught better? I think the quantity problem is data, quality problem will be a lot more PE, teacher engagement, and so on.
And one last question, just to wrap it up: if childhood could write a report on adults today, what do you think it would say? This is for both of you. F.
So as far as getting kids to play context, I'm just staying with the get kids to play world. My view is pretty good.
So that's say your report card for adults, right? Yeah, the way so the one way to look at it is any parent who has experienced sport or playing themselves would actually score higher because they understand they'll allow kids to play and all that. Unfortunately, it's like unknown. The ones who've not experienced or had a bad experience then will move away from sport and play. Like you were saying, if you're only forming a school team, the rest didn't play, I'm not good enough, so I started feeling I'm not good enough. So forever I'll be thinking about those ones will again may not probably encourage kids to play again because they've had a bad experience. That negative loop is is the difficult problem to solve.
Yeah, on a related point, I think this notion of playing and getting too competitive around your child's play is also a big issue, not just in India, globally. But kids play for fun, adults come in and bring in the whole notion of competition and so on. But how do you make sure that the kid continues to play for fun and you keep your competitive piece out as a parent, support the child's progress? And things like values, things like education, parent leads, child follows. Things like sport and maybe other extracurricular activities, the child has to lead and parent has to support. And that notion of making sure kids play for fun and don't bring in the competitive piece into this is a very important piece as well.
So to your point, I think grading parents is one. Hopefully it doesn't stop us. Then you have to educate the parents. You have to actually tell them playing is not for like medal, this, that. And there is health and well-being. There is teamwork, there's collab. All things are required forever in life. Playing football or delivering a project together as an adult, everybody has to, you need people. It's not far away from the experience you've had, right? Goalie is goalie, defender is defender, striker, like everyone is not doing everyone's job, right? So that education angle I think is not gone in deeper. And to your point, other thing is there's a social angle of sport maybe we didn't get into deeper. We're just thinking as we went and played and came back, right? But you might have gone to play because your friends are there, right? Because something else was there other than there's you and the ball, but there's also other people whom you like playing with is also there, which is so important also, right? Otherwise you don't get a chance to hang out, right? You can't hang out while studying, right? Even that group studying is there. But I'm saying get serious.
Instead of the leisurely activities that you can do play.
Yeah, how do you like let loose and relax and still stay for
And also don't forget that all of you are students today. In X years you will be adults.
Yeah.
Adults are not from some other planet. They're just grown up kids. Adults, all of us were your age at some point. Adults are just grown up kids. You are going to be that very soon. What will you do?
That's a hard question.
And as the last and final point, my true wish for everyone listening, students, everything is, I hope playing is not associated only with childhood. It's for life. And whichever sport, whatever, like your previous question asking badminton or soccer or trekking or anything, there's the whole, there's an ocean of activities available. And it shouldn't be that if you ask somebody, say, yeah, I used to play when I was 10 years old. No, what are you doing now? Right? So that, I hope that.
Yeah, so you feel like once somebody starts playing, it should not just drop off when they get a responsibility at a when it
You
gets
can
hard.
find an hour or two anywhere, right? Like during the week or weekend. It's not so tough.
So the dropping part might be the hardest because then getting back to playing sports would be a hard transition for most
But
people.
only if you keep doing it, you'll realize it's not a problem.
Well, I think we've learned a lot.
We've learned a lot, and thank you so much. We're really grateful to have you here, and I hope you guys really loved this episode. And that's it for this day. And yeah, thank you so much.